and welcome to Swayam MOOC on British Poetry and Drama 14th to 17th century. I'm Dr. Vandana Rajoriya and it's such a pleasure to be with you all again. Welcome back to our exploration of Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus. In our previous lectures, we studied Faustus's early ambition and the first temptations that lead him towards necromancy. Today, we focus on the middle acts, Act 2, 3 and 4. These acts are very important because it is here that we see the whole magnitude of moral decay, the working of desire and pride taking center stage. These acts show us the tension between conscience and indulgence. The use of comedy beautifully highlights folly and the growing spectacle of Faustus's mighty ambition. By the end of this session, you'll be able to not only understand the development of action scene by scene, but you'll also be able to see how Marlowe blends soliloquy, humor and spectacle to create a story that is entertaining, dramatic and morally instructive. So, let us begin. But remember, these acts are the architectural foundation for Faustus's ultimate downfall in Act 5th. Before we proceed further and move into the analysis of the act, let us look at the acts scene by scene. In Act 2nd, Scene 1, we see Faustus at a crucial moment. He thinks about the immense powers he will gain through magic. In his soliloquy, we hear both excitement and hesitation. He is thrilled by the possibilities, but he is also aware of the danger. He has decided to sell his soul to devil. This is the first clear glimpse of the struggle between desire and conscience. As we move to Scene 2, the struggle seems to be more visible. We see good angel and bad angel discussing, arguing. Good angel forces Faustus to repent, reminding him of God's mercy. But the evil angel keeps on tempting him with power, wealth, fame and whatnot. Now here Marlowe in this act, in these scenes, shows us the battle happening inside Faustus in such a way that audience can both see and feel it. We actually understand how even someone as brilliant as Faustus can be torn between right and the wrong, doable and the not doable. As we move from this to Act 3rd, the scene shifts. Now humor finds a place in it. So Robin and Ruff, two foolish characters, they try magic but for silly reasons and they fail in not normal ways but ways which are so funny. The audience laughs, but the comedy here fulfills a very deep purpose. It highlights human folly and shows what happens when ambition is unchecked. These small-scale errors reflect the greater mistakes Faustus is making. As we move to Scene 2 of the act, Faustus dazzles the emperor with his magic. He enjoys the admiration, the attention and he allows pride and indulgence to grow and grow and grow. We see him becoming more caught up in worldly success and we see him with every step moving away from conscience, away from spiritual reflection and decay. As we move to the next scene, Scene 3rd, we see Faustus, is again thinking, returning to his previous way of analyzing things. He starts speaking, and through his soliloquy, we hear his fear, his doubt, and his longing for more and more power, lasting power. Even as he is performing in public, his inner conflict resonates his thoughts clearly. Audience empathizes with him, but we also sense his moral blindness. From this scene, this act, as we move to the next act, Act 4th, Scene 1, we find a great spectacle unfold. Faustus, in this very famous scene, conjures Helen of Troy. Helen, who is symbol of both desire and beauty. This scene shows us that temptation is something tangible and mesmerizing, but also dangerous. And as audience, we experience the allure of pleasure and indulgence, seeing how Faustus's ambition and desire gradually pull him away from morality. In scenes 2nd to 5th, Faustus continues to indulge himself and flaunts his power. He uses magic for entertainment, vanity, and public display. His moral decline gradually accelerates, pride grows, and the consequences of his choices become clearer and clearer. So these acts together, they build tension and set the stage for the grotesque, comic, and tragic events of Act 5th to follow. If you look at these acts in totality, throughout Act 2nd to Act 4th, Marlowe blends soliloquy, comedy, and spectacle very beautifully. While his soliloquies let us hear Faustus's inner struggles, the comedy highlights human folly very strikingly by creating clear contrast. And then the spectacle makes desire, pride, and temptation so powerfully visible. Together, they prepare us for the final act, showing the slow and steady collapse of a brilliant but flawed man. Now, as we have looked at the summary of these acts, Act 2nd to 4th, let us take a closer look at the deeper suggestions and implications hidden in the action, behind the action of these acts. So, when you look at Act 2, what is it that you see? It's basically struggle between conscience and temptation. It is here that we find Faustus's inner conflict becoming so visible, so powerful, and Marlowe's use of soliloquies highlights the struggle, the tension between desire and conscience very beautifully. While Faustus contemplates on power, saying, "How am I glutted with conceit of this? Shall I make spirits fetch me what I please? Resolve me all ambiguities?" The lines force us to think, to reflect. Notice there is mixture of both excitement and hesitation. Faustus is exhilarated by the power which necromancy seems to be offering, but deep down he is also aware of the potential consequences of using it, yielding to it. And it is this tension that basically drives the action of the drama forward. As we move to the next scene, we find good angel and bad angel debating. Good angel says, "Sweet Faustus, leave that execrable art, betake thee to God." But evil angel stops. "What God can hurt thee, Faustus?" Here, Marlowe externalizes the moral struggle. Conscience urges repentance, temptation. It encourages indulgence. Faustus hesitates, but his choice to listen to his temptation sets the stage for his final decline. So, when you look at the Act 2, when you look at these soliloquies and these angelic interventions, deeply, they reveal Faustus's inner struggle, victory of temptation over conscience, in clear term. And they not only reveal the truth in full picture, but they also foreshadow the consequences of this delay, this indecision that dominates the entire act while Faustus meditates on do or do not. As we move to the Act 3rd and Act 4th, the action moves further, but not only the action, but the whole architecture of the play changes. Think of this as the first layer in the architecture of Faustus's downfall. Act 3rd is where comedy and moral contrast slightly, highlight the shift. The shift here, drives our focus to mini comic subplots. These contrasts serve a very important dramatic function. On the superficial level, these scenes are funny, so they bring dramatic relief from the great tension, but beneath the humor, they highlight very boldly, very deeply the folly, the pride, and the consequences, the deep damnation resulting from the unchecked ambition. As we move further, the clownic characters, Robin and his friends, as they attempt magic for very trivial purposes, fetching ale, playing tricks, and failing repeatedly, their failures amuse us, but at the same time, they also make us realize the moral lessons, because they underscore the idea that ambition without knowledge, wisdom, and prudence leads to failure. And this scene beautifully highlights this. While Faustus displays power, Faustus begins to perform, is reduced to the status of a clown, performing for the Emperor of Germany, summoning spirits, dazzling audience, making the public enjoy, and is amazed by the admiration he gets. His pride keeps on taking toll, and we look at it, find it in full display when he says, "What god can hurt thee, Faustus?" When his inner voice, bad angel, says, as Faustus summons the spirits, dazzles the audience, and enjoys the public admiration he is getting, his pride comes out fully visible. It is on full display when he says, "What god can hurt thee, Faustus? I command you all." Notice how public indulgence, magnifies his moral decline. Faustus is no longer hesitating privately. He is flaunting power without conscience, something very, very important and deplorable. Scene 3rd, where we find, the soliloquies and reflection again taking a space, even amid comedy and spectacle, Faustus, via his soliloquies, forces us to reflect upon the important questions, and the moments that follow, they show us his fleeting doubts, his recognition of danger, yet he chooses pleasure over conscience. As we move further, Act 3rd is where, you find comedy, but meaningful comedy. It entertains, but highlights the weaknesses in full picture. Here, what is contrasted beautifully is Faustus's grandeur, emphasizing both his pride and his ambition. It further shows us how tragedy arises from repeated ethical blindness and wrong choices. By these acts, Marlowe not only makes us laugh, but the impression is unforgettable. The moral stakes behind that laughter actually lead a lasting impact. And in Act 4th, we find the dance of desire, indulgence, and great spectacle. It is in this act that Faustus fully indulges in his desire, and Marlowe brings spectacle in its full theatricality to the forefront. When Helen of Troy is brought, and he says, was this the phase that launched 1,000 ships and burnt the topless flowers of Ilium? This moment is spectacular. Faustus's desire for beauty becomes literal, conjured on stage, and spectacle here shows how far he has fallen. So ethics here are overridden by indulgence and vanity. If you look at scenes 2nd and 5th of the act, you find a lot of public indulgence in it, because Faustus continues to perform for the audiences, for the admiration which he gets and the pleasure out of such appreciation. But his interaction with Mephistopheles, it emphasizes the compromise, he has made. He has chosen short-term delight over eternal salvation. So we feel and see pride and temptation dominate, but also notice the gloom beneath it. So the whole act accelerates moral decay. We see how desire blinds Faustus to conscience. We see how public indulgence makes and motivates further moral decline, making it visible and undeniable. We also see ethical blindness, which prepares the audience for the grotesque elements in the Act 5th to come. If you look at them totally, they all show that what are the consequences of unrestrained desire, and therefore they set the stage for the ultimate tragedy to unfold. Up till now, we have looked at the scenes, the implications of the action of the scenes. Now, let us take a moment to look at the key thematic concerns. The first thing to notice in these acts is the central tension, as we have talked about earlier also, between conscience and desire. Faustus is not innocent. He knows what is right, but he is drawn towards power, knowledge, and worldly pleasures. We see this tension clearly as he encounters the good and the bad angels, good and the evil angels. So when good angel says, call on God, God will pity thee. But as evil angel tempts him, thinkest thou that Faustus will be damned? Through these moments, Marlowe lets us witness Faustus's inner conflict, not only witness it, but also we relate to fear, pride, hesitation of Faustus very deeply. And all the soliloquies through these acts, they give us direct access to his pure thoughts, true thoughts, allowing us to understand both his temptation as well as his rationalizations. Next, we see comedy as a contrasting device used in this play. So when the comic characters, when Robin and his friend, they introduce moments of laughter, they fumble in their magical attempts. They stumble through minor follies, and by doing this, they bring, dramatic relief, humor to the stage, but also, they impart deeper suggested meaning to the action of the play by highlighting the consequences of unchecked ambition, by highlighting vanity of human ambition and human folly. So we as audience laugh, but the humor sharpens this sense of the moral lesson embedded in it. Another major theme is spectacle and indulgence. So we find it to be working in full, force in Act 3 and 4. Both the acts are filled with dazzling display of magic, public entertainments, and both these acts basically create a spectacle that shows how pride and temptation, take a toll, how they act, demonstrating how, here indulgence basically is accelerating moral decay. So Faustus seeks admiration and control, but with each display of power, we see him dragged further from repentance and from correction. Finally, Marlowe plants foreshadowing as a device in Act 5th. And in all these acts, we find seeds of grotesque, horror, absurdity appear and reappear, making the impression and the impact even more powerful. Faustus, his indulgence in comic relief and hesitation, mixed with his sense of fear, humor, and the grotesque spectacle, they force us to feel very deeply this powerful tragedy. With this, we come to an end of our discussions of thematic concerns of these acts, but let us now, reflect upon the acts and the insights which they provide to the audience. Faustus and the responses of the audience, they are really important, to think and anticipate and then understand the true import of the play. So let us reflect upon what these acts teach us, what they teach us about Faustus, and also what they teach us about the audience of the time, the people of the time, their thoughts and actions. So let us first look at the soliloquies. This play abounds in great soliloquies, powerful soliloquies. All of them reveal the depth of Faustus's inner struggle, highlighting the inner tensions of the people of the time, and they're relevant even today. They allow us to hear the doubts, the pride, the longing, desire, and hesitation, which somehow affect and overpower all of us very powerfully. We feel empathy because we see how awareness and indulgence collide in Faustus's mind, and we not only see, we are able to relate to it. Second, the comic subplots in the play actually serves a very important purpose. It shapes our perception of the story. So while it entertains, it illuminates. It illuminates the deep damnation, of human folly. By laughing at Robin and Raphael, we understand Faustus's errors more clearly. The contrast between these two, humor and tragedy, it intensifies the, sense of warning, which basically is the essence of the play. Basically, when Christopher Marlowe wrote this play, it was a warning to the audience of the time, a warning against yielding to the temptation, to excessive ambition. And spectacle in this play accelerates this moral decline. So public display of magic, while it highlights the downfall of Faustus, from a great knowledgeable scholar to a clown, the indulgence serves to dramatize his desire very deeply. And we are in a position to relate to these desires. They basically show how temptation and pride can overwhelm conscience. So with every magical demonstration, we are in a position to see deep divination of Faustus folding and unfolding and unfolding. And the moral implications of the play, they become powerful and more powerful with each display. So as audience, we are in a position to witness this process, in entirety and feel it with full power. All these acts basically, they prepare the ground for the next act, where the tension between moral blindness is very beautifully to be unfolded, and they foreshadow the grotesque elements, all making the audience ready for the Faustus's final fall. We are in a position to understand through the action so far why Faustus cannot escape his fate. Here, Marlowe basically balances very beautifully both entertainment and moral instruction, almost masterfully. So, while soliloquies, comedy and spectacle, they keep us and the audience engaged, they also carry deep, powerful, ethical, lasting lessons for humanity. And therefore, while we are entertained, we are also warned. We see the consequences of unchecked desire, and we see the implications of hubris, pride, and we are in a position to feel the impact very powerfully. With this, we come to an end of our discussions of Act 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Let us recapitulate what we have learned so far. The Acts 2nd to 4th basically, highlight the action and further the action towards final, denouement. If we summarize Acts, 2 to 4, they are far more than fillers. They are the architecture of Faustus's downfall. Every scene, every soliloquy, every comic interlude works together to show the gradual moral and psychological decline of our protagonist. The central tension between conscience and desire drives the action of the play. Faustus knows the right path, not that he doesn't know. And this is what makes it so painfully relatable. Yet he is repeatedly drawn towards worldly power and forbidden knowledge. This struggle keeps the audience aware of both his potential and his imminent ruin. So while comedy provides the contrast, as we have repeatedly asserted, it also emphasizes these moral lessons very powerfully. And all the comic characters introduced, who bring moments of laughter, also highlight the layered meaningfulness behind the humor, which is not empty, highlighting the human folly, exaggerating and demonstrating human weaknesses very powerfully, and forcing us not only to reflect upon Faustus's errors but also our own. So while we laugh, the laughter, a deep sense of unease, a subtle moral warning for all of us. So, and then spectacle also serves a very important function in this play. While it externalizes pride and indulgence, it highlights the temptation, it also very beautifully demonstrates the, corruption that comes with power. So Marlowe stages Faustus's ambitions in full view using all these, devices. So spectacle dramatizes moral decline and makes us see the pride becoming obsessing, desire becoming overwhelming and taking a toll on conscience, and indulgence shaping his behavior, foreshadowing hints at the grotesque, the absurd elements of the play. So even in these middle acts of the play, Marlowe seeds the final act's mixture of both horror and humor, and we as audience are thus prepared for the final elements to unfold in the act fifth, which we'll be doing later on. So this is all for today. In the next session, we will enter into the final act where all these elements, inner conflict, comic folly and public spectacle come together. In Faustus's public spectacle come together in Faustus's final terrifying hour. We will witness the full power of Marlowe's stagecraft, the grotesque and tragic and the morally unforgettable lines. So this is all for today. Remember, acts 2 to 4 are not just entertainment, they are a mirror reflecting human weaknesses, dangers of delay, indulgence and temptation. They teach us to reflect on our own choices as we prepare for Faustus's ultimate reckoning. This is it. Thank you. See you in the next session.